4 IDF soldiers were killed in southern Lebanon, and Hezbollah immediately tried to turn that strike into a message. Not only a message to Israel, a message to Iran, to the United States, and to everyone now trying to force quiet on the northern border. While Washington talks about a ceasefire and 60 days of negotiations with Tehran, Hezbollah is trying to remind everyone that it is still here, not as an army that can decide the war, but as a terror organization looking for a way to keep wearing Israel down from inside the ruins it created in southern Lebanon. That is the key point. Hezbollah is not standing today where it stood before the war. The IDF hit its infrastructure, exposed tunnels, struck anti-tank positions, pushed Radwan forces farther from the border, and reached areas the organization had spent years preparing as combat zones for the day of attack. But when the larger system is damaged, Hezbollah does not disappear. It shrinks, it hides, it looks for something smaller, cheaper, and harder to catch. That is where the drone threat comes in. I'm Shoshani, and this is Boots on the Ground. Today, we're not only talking about a new system from Rafael, not only about an interceptor drone called the Iron Wasp, we're talking about a change on the battlefield in southern Lebanon. Hezbollah is trying to turn drones, fiber-optic control lines, and small loitering weapons into a constant tool of attrition against IDF forces. Behind this is also a much larger diplomatic story. Iran is trying to pull Lebanon into its negotiations with the United States. Tehran wants the world to see every Israeli operation in southern Lebanon as a violation of wider understandings. Hezbollah, for its part, is trying to gain diplomatic protection from that. When the IDF strikes a launcher, a drone cell, or terror infrastructure, the organization runs to hide behind Iran. Like a small child caught in the act, it looks for someone bigger to cover for it. But on the ground, there is nothing innocent here. This is not a weak organization asking for protection. This is a terror organization that continues to use villages, tunnels, ambushes, and drones to attack IDF forces and keep the pressure on northern Israeli communities. Drones have become especially useful for it. An FPV drone can launch from a yard, a building, a valley, or a concealed point in the terrain. It doesn't need a large launch site. It doesn't need an exposed rocket launcher. It can carry a camera, an explosive charge, and move quickly towards a tank, a bulldozer, an armored vehicle, or a group of soldiers. For Hezbollah, this is the perfect tool for the kind of war it's fighting right now. Not a broader offensive, but a focused strike, a video, online distribution, and an attempt to present tactical hit as a strategic victory. The problem becomes more complex when these are fiber-optic drones. Now, a regular drone works through wireless transmission. And if the frequency is detected, it can sometimes be jammed, blocked, or disconnected from the operator. A fiber-optic drone works very differently. A thin cable trails behind it, sometimes for many miles, carrying the video feed and the commands. There's almost no electronic signature in the air. The operator sees a live picture, guides the drone towards the target, and tries to strike at the exact moment the force is exposed. This is not glamorous technology. It is dangerous because it's so simple.
Shalom, Secret Man B. Thank you for coming. You are involved in flying FPV drones in civilian life.
Yep.
In this war, you take a completely different role. You're part of a unit that is barely talked about, and when it's talked about in a very hush-hush voice of, I can't believe this thing actually exists. Tell us what you've been doing for the last year and a half in this ongoing war.
So I will start from the beginning. At the 7th of October, we were in the World Championship of Drone Racing in Korea. Came back to Israel, straight to the army, and then started to find how we can assist the IDF with the drones, exactly as we did 6 years ago with the kites and balloons that was burning all the fields in the Otif. First, we started to do things with the grenades. It was very hard because there is a lot of difficulties how you can connect to this machine a grenade with all the safety measures. So what we did is printed the 3D printing at the bottom of the drone and do with all the safety features mechanism that you can throw the grenades. And that's what we did for I think 3 or 4 months. Make sure that no hostiles are intact.
But the trick is you're embedded within the units.
Yeah.
You're not in a command center somewhere, you're out in the field. So the time that it takes you to figure out what's happening and how to respond to it, it's almost instantaneous.
It's instant, and we were very lucky because they trusted us.
So you're telling me the story. One, I think it's important to remind everyone that this is all on a volunteer basis.
Yes.
You're at the age where you didn't have to do this anymore.
No.
And you get out of your bed and say, instead of racing drones and doing whatever you do in civilian life, I want to serve, and you go embedded on the ground into Lebanon and then into the Gaza Strip. And as the war is progressing, you're manufacturing a weapon that hasn't existed yet.
Exactly.
And I think that's important to note. This isn't something off the shelf. You iterated and went through an R&D process that companies take 5-7 years to develop. You did this on the fly during a war.
We integrated a civilian stuff that you can buy off the shelf and integrate them together in order to be a military-grade solution.
This changes the tempo of combat. In the past, a force mainly had to identify an ambush, a launcher, a cell, or an explosive device. Today, it also has to detect a threat that appears only for a few seconds, comes out of a complex terrain, and tries to hit before anyone has time to respond. That's why defense cannot rely only on high and distant air defense layers. Iron Dome, David Sling, and Israel's other air defense systems are a major part of its security strength. But a small drone closing in on a tank in southern Lebanon demands a different kind of answer. It needs a response that stays with the force, moves with it, and reacts at the pace of ground combat. Now, this is where Iron Wasp comes into play. Rafael and SpearUAV have announced the development of a system designed to be installed on armored combat vehicles. The idea is to give maneuvering forces an organic layer of protection against drones and loitering munitions. Not a system positioned far behind them, but a capability that travels with the vehicle itself. The system is based on Super UAV's Viper technology. It launches an interceptor drone from a small multi-canister launcher mounted on the armored vehicle, and it is designed to operate even while the force is mobile. The goal is to detect, to identify, and intercept small, fast, low-signature targets without stopping the force or forcing it into a complicated deployment. That is all the most important detail, while in motion. Because in southern Lebanon, a force can't always stop, set up a system, wait for a clean identification, and then respond. It moves along narrow routes, closes valleys, passes between buildings, escorts engineering vehicles, changes direction, and sometimes does all of this under fire. Now, if counter-drone defense arrives too late, it's no longer defense, it's an after-action review. It doesn't really work. But this needs to be said very carefully. Iron Wasp is not magic. There is no single solution to the drone threat altogether. This is a family of threats, and each type requires a slightly different response. Requires surveillance drones, explosive drones, loitering munitions, autonomous systems, fiber-optic drones, and drones controlled by ordinary radio links. All of them are now part of the same complex battlefield. Now, that is why Israel needs a layered answer to this threat. Intelligence before launch, strikes against operating cells, early detection, jamming when possible, simple tools like nets in certain situations, accurate fire when there's no other choice. In the near future, lasers as well. And above all, an interception capability that stays close to the force and doesn't wait for someone far away to understand what's happening. The meaning is bigger than the system itself. For years, people said the tank was losing its place on the battlefield. This war showed a different picture. The tank is not disappearing, it is becoming more complex. Armor, sensors, communications, active protection mechanisms, intelligence collection, drones, and eventually aerial interception systems all around it. The modern tank is not only a weapon that fires, it is part of a combat network, and that is exactly what Hezbollah is trying to hit. If it can't stop the maneuver, it will try to slow it down. And if it can't destroy a large force, it will look for a single bulldozer, an exposed armored vehicle, or a moment when a tank is stationary. This is a method of attrition. It doesn't give Hezbollah a real military victory, but it can create pain, delay, public pressure, and images of the organization needs in order to present itself as still viable and active in Lebanon. And here, we return to Iran. The logic was not only operating in southern Lebanon. Iran spent years building a doctrine of remote warfare through proxies, relatively cheap weapons, concealment inside civilian areas, small attacks, and the ability to hurt an advanced state without entering a direct army-to-army confrontation. In Lebanon, for instance, that means Hezbollah. In Yemen, it means the Houthis. In Iraq and Syria, it means the militias. In every arena, the name is different, but the methodology is similar. A small drone is part of that method. It allows Iran to keep the fire burning without standing at the front lines. It allows Hezbollah to keep disrupting Israel without admitting how much of its larger capability has been damaged. And it forces the IDF to adapt faster than militaries usually like to change. This is why Israeli development matters. Not because one new system changes the war by itself, but because this campaign has become a race of learning. Hezbollah tries to find blind spots. The IDF studies the methodology. The defense industries develop a response. The forces in the field change their drills. Then the enemy tries again. Modern war is no longer a straight line. It is more like a fast chase between threat and response. Whoever learns faster survives better. If you want to understand what is really happening here in Israel and across the Middle East, make sure you follow Boots on the Ground, like this video, and subscribe right now. Because in moments like this, the details matter, the truth matters, and you don't want to miss what comes next. If you love TBN Israel and want to be part of what God is doing here in the land, we'd love to invite you to visit our official online store at shop.tbnisrael.com. There you'll find exclusive TBN Israel merchandise that helps you stay connected to what's happening here and be part of sharing the message coming out of Israel. You can also find items inspired by our programs, including boots on the ground resources and more. Every purchase helps support the work we're doing here on the ground, reporting, teaching, and bringing you updates from Israel through a biblical lens. So whether you're looking for something meaningful for yourself or a way to stand with Israel, we invite you to take a look. Visit shop.tbnisrael.com and thank you for standing with us and supporting TBN Israel. Now we need to look at the wider picture. At the same time that Hezbollah is using drones in southern Lebanon, the United States is trying to preserve the negotiation window with Iran. Trump wants to present an agreement that calms the Middle East, opens the Strait of Hormuz, and pushes Iran away from a nuclear weapon. But Israel is looking at the northern border and saying, if Hezbollah continues to fight, then there is no real quiet, there is no real ceasefire. This is the point of the friction. Washington wants to lower the flames. Jerusalem wants to make sure Hezbollah does not use the quiet to rebuild. Iran wants something entirely different. They want the ceasefire to protect its Lebanese proxy. And the IDF has to make decisions on the ground, facing a drone that is arriving now, not a clause in a diplomatic document sometime in the future. That is why Israel's freedom of action in Lebanon is not symbolic. If the IDF cannot strike drone calls or cells, anti-tank launchers, tunnels, and weapon depots, Hezbollah gains time. Time to rebuild, time to hide, time to bring operatives back, time to turn the next strike into a question of when, not if. Drones are only the newest expression of that problem. They show how a terror organization, under pressure, shifts to smaller and faster tools, trying to cause damage without taking responsibility for a full-scale war. They also show why Israel can't be satisfied with yesterday's achievements. A tunnel that was destroyed does not stop a drone that launches tomorrow. A weapon depot that was hit doesn't cancel an operator waiting inside a village. That's why the military achievement has to come or become a continuous system of detection, attack, defense, and learning. This is the test for the IDF. Not only to hit Hezbollah when it is exposed, but to prevent it from turning cheap drones into a permanent tool of attrition. Not only to win the big battle, but to reduce the small moments in which a terror organization tries to create a picture of victory. The battle in southern Lebanon is now moving into a lower, faster, and more dangerous layer. Not instead of tanks, engineers, and aircraft, but between them. Hezbollah hides behind Iran hides behind negotiations, and on the ground, a small drone looks for one moment when an Israeli force is exposed. And the question is whether Israel can close that window fast enough before Hezbollah turns it into its main method of war along the northern border. Guys, keep spreading the truth, follow us, and most importantly, do not forget to click the subscribe button so that you stay tuned into the truth in real time and never miss boots on the ground. Keep looking for me, Mati Shoshani, and Yael Pinto on social media to see Israel and the life here through our eyes. And now let's end, as always, with prayer for Israel. I want to remind you guys, one, first of all, to read your Bible and Scripture on a daily basis because it will inform the way you look at the world. And two, start praying. Pray for our leaders, for President Trump. Pray for our leader in Israel, Prime Minister Netanyahu. Pray for the people of this country, the men and women here in uniform, and the American men and women fighting to protect this part of the world. And guys, if you don't know what to pray, you say the Lord's Prayer, that His will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Be safe, guys, and we'll see you all the next time.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yael Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.